I'm Jim Check. You're watching Kelowna Now. This morning I have with me Brent Tolmie from Genesys AI. Brent, why don't you tell us what Genesys AI is?
Good morning, Jim. Thanks for having me. Genesys AI is a company focused on using AI technology as well as machine learning and applying that to problems in the natural resource sector. And of course, once you understand tree science, you start to think, well, how can we use technology to help build more resilient communities so that we can live with wildfire and understand what we need to do to prevent wildfires from really damaging communities like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, so you guys are Kelowna based as well?
We are, yeah, headquartered in Kelowna and lots of long-term residents. We have a team that's scattered pretty much all across Canada, different industry experts that we've pulled together. So as far as Nanaimo, I'm sitting in Chilliwack today. We have staff, some of our data scientists are in Kelowna attached to UBCO. So great faculty as well as folks in Saskatchewan and beyond.
So maybe explain a little bit to the average person how the technology works and the benefits of the technology.
Sure. So focused on wildfire currently because it's such a huge problem in Canada. We're seeing mass community evacuation like Fort Nelson this year, of course, Yellowknife last year. And then, of course, everybody in Kelowna understands what happens. It seems like every 20 years we're getting these massive events that destroy structures. So we took that on and we really defined wildfire as a before, during, and after problem. And we think there's people that are doing the sensor technology, picking up on the reporting of wildfires really well. We think there's advanced companies like Coulson, like Conair that are doing firefighting really well. And of course, we got the BC Wildfire Service that's plowing lots of capital into that. So we took a step back and said, all right, how do we use AI? How do we use what we know and stack all that stuff together to help build more resilient communities? And how it works is that we've taken data and we've trained it against real-time satellite data. And it allows us to show communities where they've got too much fuel, where they could have a crown fire, where the historical fires came from in the past, how the weather today could push fire in different directions. And so it's really about giving communities real-time tools to understand what they need to be doing and how they can build a better and more resilient community.
So simply like a risk assessment tool kind of thing. So these are the high risk areas or the high risk times and areas, I guess. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. And conventionally, you used to get a nice big PDF report that had maybe 150 pages with some maps and some details, and you would refresh that every 5 years. So we've taken all that information, we've taken all those community wildfire protection plans, we've run them through AI and trained our AI to recognize what is good practices, what is good forest management. But then we've taken it one step further. So if you're the community of West Kelowna, for instance, you have this community wildfire protection plan that you've paid a sum of money for that was stale dated the day you received it. So, if it's dated today, that means tomorrow there could be new information that's not being implemented into that report. Versus our model, which is an online portal, you go to it, you look at it, it has real-time information that's coming in from satellite data that we've essentially applied over to the area so that you can see what's happening in real time. So it's out of the paper and into the online portal where you can see the updates.
So this data then would go to the people that in wildfire services, I guess, that would look at mitigation practices to kind of like mitigate some of those areas that are high risk?
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the challenge is we only have so much money to do this fuel mitigation work. So what is fuel mitigation? That means pruning trees so we don't get crown fires that travel very fast and create an intense fire and change the weather. Removing fuel, which means some trees have to be taken out. Things like houses that are have urban interface, so they're basically crept right up into the forest. What do they need to do? What needs to be done around those properties? And then from a community perspective, if you're Kelowna and you have this nice band of trees, then perhaps that's an area where fire would travel through. So do we put a break in there? Do we plant deciduous trees instead because they're more resilient towards wildfire? So how do we maximize the budget that we have to do this work in order to create the most resilient effect? And I think one step further is that what we're doing is we're actually trying to quantify what is the butcher's bill, what is the actual cost to do this work, to maintain this work, knowing that an ounce of prevention is worth obviously a pound of cure.
Yeah, I guess to summarize it, we all know we have finite resources of money and manpower, and you're saying we can better employ them in certain areas to get maximum benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it comes down to a comparison. So 1 hour of a heavy helicopter flight that is water bombing with a Bambi bucket, that could be as much as 10, 20, $30,000 an hour in some cases. The big tankers that Colson has, that Conair has, these planes are charging sometimes tens of thousands of dollars an hour just to be on standby. $10,000 creates a lot of fuel mitigation treatment over many acres of land. And so when we start thinking about how we can spend a little bit of money up front to prevent having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in actually fighting wildfire and then just avoiding the devastation, losing 200 structures last year in West Kelowna. An event that was largely predicted, if we go back to 2003, there's an executive summary called Firestorm, it's called the Filman Report. And it basically predicted what was going to happen 20 years later if the measures weren't taken into consideration. And of course, some of them were, some of them weren't. And then of 20 years later, we had this repeating tragedy, in 2023, where everything was basically predicted in that report. So what we're trying to do is take that and say, look, there's issues here. This is how we can't spend our way out of the problem, but we can be smart about the capital that we have, and we can give you real-time information. One other thing that we're really proud of, and we're going to release it here pretty quickly, is we're going to rank every community that's a member of the UBCM, the Union of BC Municipalities, right, and give them a scorecard in terms of what they're doing right, and where the biggest risks are to which communities. So we'll be looking to put that out pretty soon.
That'd be very interesting. I'd love to have you on once that report's ready, because one of the things Kelowna Now has been kind of like trying to get the questions and answers on is mitigation. It doesn't seem like we're doing enough mitigation. We've talked to the opposition parties and the BC Conservative Party, and they believe more mitigation needs to be done. It seems like, like even personally myself, I've taken all the pine out from around my house, which I had 20, and then deciduous trees seem to be the answer. We still have that foliage and not have those, that kind of like fire fuel next to your home, right?
Exactly right. And you would be in the informed, and a lot of people in Kelowna would be informed. Folks at Predator Ridge are doing a really great job. They understand this issue. They've partnered with the city of Vernon. So they're coming up with good strategies, but the average homeowner just doesn't have access to this information. So we just want a tool to show, look, out of 100, here's the score of your community. So, Richmond or Delta is not like West Kelowna. West Kelowna is not like Fort Nelson. And we need more linkage, more talk between interagencies. So what is Ministry of Forests doing when they're planning cut blocks with Gorman Brothers or Tolko around the Kelowna area? Mm-hmm. And are those logging plans actually firestorm resilient? Or are they creating more risk? And so that's really, and then the type of trees that they plant back, because there's already money being spent in the cycle of the forest economy that could be redirected and redeployed in a more smart or intelligent way.
From what I get from this, the solution to our wildfire issues in British Columbia for sure is more of a layered approach, because we did the interview yesterday with SenseNet, which is working with Predator Ridge, and they're more about like sensors and cameras in around there to sense a wildfire so that it can be an early response. But you're saying your kind of layer is prior to the fires, where you're saying assessing the risks and where we should be applying mitigation. And obviously Colson and Conair, they come in and they're actually in the response team. So I guess a more layered approach as opposed to just reacting to wildfires.
Exactly right. It's, again, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We need to figure out how to live with wildfires. Obviously, we're just entering into a big heat wave that's going across Canada and North America. It's looking at the temperature down in Palm Springs, somewhere we like to go down for spring break, and it's in the 40s to 50s. This is the new reality. So how do we build towards that? So we're not spending $1 billion fighting wildfire when we could be spending, and I know it's a big number, but a few $100 million building real resilience and tying things together like the SenseNet technologies and like the deployment of logging resources in an intelligent way, planting back deciduous fire breaks, changing how we do things and integrating it all together. And that's what big data does, is we take everything we can get our hands on, we stratify it, we put it in a database, and then we build proprietary AI tools to really tell us what are the decision points that will actually make a difference. And then how do we do it in a cost effective way? So that's what we're trying to bring.
Who's your customer right now?
Yeah, our customers are communities. So we're a startup. We're in the startup world, but we're working right now with a customer in Harrison Hot Springs. It's a private real estate development. They have this material concern. They're in a valley with trees on either side that could burn. There's been wildfires in those jurisdictions. So they came to us, we came to them and said, let's do a trial. Let's get some real high-end granular data and let's figure out what a good mitigation plan is to build resilience. And then we've opened conversations up with municipalities who want this technology so that they can share it with their fire department, so they can share it with their emergency responders, and so that they can displace these old paper plans that no one really looks at and actually
outdated
exactly.
plans. Yeah. So
yeah,
it sounds like,
go ahead.
Like, I mean, information is so important. And if we can do it in a 24/7 live environment, like you're saying, and I'm assuming you're using Starlink, or what are you using for your satellite system?
We're using Airbus's Sentinel-2. So it's flying around the Earth. Information's getting updated every couple days.
Okay.
So if there's a fuel mitigation effort, if we went into a forest, if we trimmed them, pruned them, planted some deciduous, we would actually be able to show that happening in the platform on a somewhat live basis. So you're not waiting until the next report comes out 3-5 years later to say, hey, did this work or did this occur? And what that means is that citizens like yourself are able to hold government's feet to the fire to say, look, did this mitigation effort actually lower the fire risk? What are you doing to help us build strong communities that are resilient against wildfire, living in this new normal? And that's really what we're focusing on is tools that citizens can use, tools that governments can use, and tools that emergency service folks can use. So our audience is government. Our audience is the everyday person who has a material concern. We're also talking to insurance companies because we know that there's starting to be insurance refugees, folks that can't get insurance on their properties because you had a Kelowna wildfire. Okay, well, now your insurance rate's going to go up. Well, that might not necessarily apply to me because I've taken out all my pine. I've planted deciduous. So
I've
I don't
said
want
that
to
for a while. I think that's coming from insurance companies. If you have 20 pines surrounding your home, you're probably going to have a tough time getting fire insurance.
And cedar hedges, frankly, in a coastal environment, totally fine. But we love them. They're beautiful. They're not resilient to wildfire at all.
Yeah, so fuel sources near your home probably are not. I think the insurance company has sent out a letter. Jason's is running the desk back there, and he got a letter today from an insurance company saying for this year, for free, they will come out and assess your home for fuel sources and even clean up some of it. And if there's a wildfire, they'll come out again and just make sure everything's okay. So they're obviously gearing towards that as well. And I imagine they will be a big customer of yours because they'll use that for risk assessment.
That's the plan. Exactly. And so somebody doesn't have to come out. They'll actually just be able to see it. And technology is great in that we can actually define what type of tree it is without ever having to visit the site, just through satellite imagery and models that we've trained using AI.
One of the interesting things about AI is that it kind of accelerates and gets better every day. I guess you guys have a technology that's working right now, or is there plans to kind of enhance it and keep moving it forward?
That's the advantage of big data, is that the more data you let AI run against, the better models you have. So we take a small data set of what we know and we use that as training. And then once we get it right and have worked all the bugs out, then we can apply it to a much larger data set. And that's similar to what the GPTs, Chat GPT and DALL-E and BARD are doing, is they'll train it on a small data set and make sure that it knows the right answer before you put it against a massive data set. And we've even seen that with the GPTs, where Chat GPT, when it first came out a year and a half ago, it was an interesting toy, but maybe not that great. And now the 4.0 or 4 Omni is a wonderful version that can do many more things. We still get the odd little bug with, if you ask it to draw a picture of a person, it'll have 6 fingers, things like that. But it is getting smarter, and this is certainly an indication of things to come. And for us, we just want to aggregate more data. We want to pull in more government available data sets and keep on building more and more resilience, so that if something's working in Fort Nelson, for instance, that thinking can actually be applied to different communities that have a same or similar fuel type, so that we're all learning from each other and we're building a better mousetrap. And our goal, Jim, is to make our service the same or less cost than what communities are paying today, because they can benefit obviously from repeatable code, things that we're not having to build one-offs every time, not having to do one-off analyses every time, but actually training models that can extract a lot of information and apply to every community right around Canada and perhaps North America.
Yeah, AI is pretty amazing. I have a car that drives me back and forth to work using vision-based learning, and I have conversations with ChatGPT 4.0 on the way back and forth to work. So like actually fluid conversations. So it's pretty interesting the way the world is changing, and AI is leading that way. And then again, 24/7 live data. I mean, that's amazing, right? So anything else you want to add before we close this off for right now?
We're just looking forward to getting our risk report out to the masses so people can have a sense of where their community is at, and speaking to any community that's interested in having a real live iterative tool that can help them really rethink what we're doing about wildfire.
Timeline on that?
August. Yeah, we're going to have our risk report out in August, so we're looking forward to. I'm sure there'll be lots of talk about where people end on the list, and some of it is just natural features surrounded by water, and other people have material concern, and we need to address those things.
Yeah, we'd like to book that time right now, so we'll be one of the first to talk to the people about your report.
Love to be here, Jim.
All right. I thank you for joining us today, and I thank you for watching Kelowna Now.